Welcome to the Power of Your Mind podcast. I'm Victoria Gallagher, your host. Have you been attempting to use law of attraction or hypnosis to attract financial abundance, a soulmate, or career success? Would you like to be happy, motivated, and successful? Have better health, enjoy more fulfilling relationships, overcome struggle, and gain mastery over your life? Then join me on this amazing self-help podcast where you'll unleash the power of your mind. I'll be sharing 20 years of wisdom and techniques of hypnotherapy, law of attraction, visualization, meditation, personal growth, positive affirmations, and other effective methods to help you tap into the great power which resides in your mind and become the best version of yourself. Well, hello and welcome to today's episode of the Power of Your Mind podcast. You're listening to episode number 54. I'm Victoria Gallagher, Law of Attraction coach and #1 best-selling author of Practical Law of Attraction, Align Yourself with the Manifesting Conditions and Successfully Attract Your Desires. I'm also a clinical hypnotherapist, founder of HipTalk.com and HypnoCloud apps. So be sure to stop by HipTalk.com and sign up for your free self-hypnosis video training course. And for our listeners who found us through the Power of Your Mind podcast, you can get 35% off your first order of hypnosis downloads when you apply the code podcast to your shopping cart. Also, be sure to watch for and download our latest HypnoCloud app in the iTunes store. So today I have a very special guest with me, Lama Palden Drolma. Lama Palden Drolma is the author of Love on Every Breath, Tonglen Meditation for Transforming Pain into Joy. A licensed psychotherapist, spiritual teacher, and coach, she has studied Buddhism in the Himalayas with some of the most preeminent Tibetan masters of the 20th century. Following a 3-year retreat under his guidance, Kalu Rinpoche authorized her to become one of the first Western lamas. She subsequently founded the Sukha City Foundation, a Tibetan Buddhist teaching facility in Fairfax, California. Visit her online at lamapalden.org. So today, Lama is going to share some of her insights about Tonglen meditation for transforming pain into joy. So welcome to the show, Lama.
Thank you. Thank you. A pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you here. So let's talk a little bit about your book and Tonglen meditation. I remember doing and learning about Tonglen meditation actually many, many years ago, probably about 30 years ago. It wasn't something that I made into my own meditation practice, but it was something that I'm somewhat familiar with. I somewhat have a vague recollection of what it's all about. So it's going to be fun to dive into that and learn a little bit about that and learn about your book. So in your book, you talk about Tonglen meditation for transforming pain into joy. So what is Tonglen meditation for our audience who've never heard about that before, and how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. And Love on Every Breath, the practice of Tonglen I'm teaching, is called in Tibetan an extraordinary Tonglen. So it's probably you learned the regular one that is usually taught everywhere all over the world. And this is it's very similar, but a little bit different, so I'll explain. And it's called, like I said, extraordinary because it's a creative practice and there's imagination and visualization involved.
Okay.
So the basic practice is the idea, and in the book there's 8 steps, but I'll just tell you share with you the basic practice. Tonglen means taking and sending. Mm-hmm. And so it's a sense of a lot of times we're feeling our own suffering, we're feeling other people's suffering in the world. And it just sits there inside of ourselves. So this is a way for that to be transformed into love, into joy, and then sent out as healing, awakening energy to our regular self or to others. And also, in contemplating suffering in the world, and perhaps somebody that's close to us is suffering, having a really difficult time or some big obstacles, or maybe we are in our lives, then we can use this practice to really cultivate the love, the compassion for ourselves or others, and breathe in the suffering that's being experienced. And then through this extraordinary practice, there's a sense of a vajra, a crystal vajra of light, or which is a Buddhist symbol of our indestructible pure nature, and it embodies that. And there's a diagram of that in the book, or a drawing, but also people can just visualize like a white sphere of light in their heart that is the essence of our pure being, our awakened nature, that is indestructible, pure, deathless, birthless, stainless. And the practice helps us get in touch with that and to feel that in union with all of the awakened beings. And so that's what transforms the suffering, this presence of awakened love in our heart. And it transforms it into love, compassion, into white light. And that brings about this experience of joy.
Okay. So we're taking in the pain of someone else and we're kind of converting that into love.
Exactly. Or taking in ourselves. And as soon as the pain touches the light in the heart chakra, this sense of awakened presence, it's immediately transformed into awakened love, awakened healing energy.
Wow. That's interesting. So you call this meditation that you teach in your book Love on Every Breath, and that's a variation of Tonglen meditation?
Yes, it's one I learned in my lineage that traces back to a woman in the 11th century, a Buddhist awakened woman. And so, yes, and this also opens for us a doorway into experiencing our own awakened nature that's always there, but we're usually not in touch with.
I see. And you also say that this gives us a process to engage in when we're aware of suffering, other people, within ourselves. This is just something that it's a process that we can help other people with our suffering, their suffering.
Yes, and liberate our own heart in the process from feeling heavy and depressed or overwhelmed or powerless. We open to our innate love and wisdom, and that's very empowering then to do the practice, to feel this transformation that occurs within us.
Great, great. Now you also offer on-the-spot variations for each step of the meditation that can be used everywhere and anywhere. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And can you give us an example?
Sure, yeah. So this is what, referring back to what you're saying, we can use this practice, this meditation, anytime in daily life, and just in a few seconds or 30 seconds, whatever, in a moment, in an instant. And it helps to get familiar with the practice first in a more traditional version so that we have a sense of it. And then it's very easy to just call upon it in the moment. We could also simply study the steps, the on-the-spot steps, these like pith essence, steps, and learn it that way too. So, for example, the first step is resting in open awareness. So say during the day we find ourselves, all of a sudden we're getting really anxious, a ton of thoughts are going through our mind, or maybe thoughts are going through our mind that are leading us down into a bad neighborhood. So we can instantly just let go of all that, rest in awareness itself, and step back from that, and then kind of refresh. It's really like pressing a refresh button on our screen,
Mm-hmm.
In our consciousness. And so that's one example. Another example is more direct with the heart of the Tonglen, is say we see somebody out in the world, we're moving around doing things, and we see somebody that's really suffering. Just in an instant, we could develop compassion for them, breathe in their sufferings, see and feel it being completely transformed and liberated into awakened love and healing, and then imagine that as white light going back into them and sending healing. And this is not a substitute for actually doing things in the world to benefit others or to benefit ourselves, but it frees the heart and puts us in a place where then our actions are even more clear and more powerful in the world.
Yeah, I was going to ask you like what the benefits are of practicing this type of meditation. And also, is this like in addition to your daily, your other practice, or would this replace it?
You could do either. You could do it in addition to another meditation practice daily, or do it as your primary one. Either way would be fine.
Mm-hmm. How long do you typically practice Tonglen, and would you do it on a daily basis, or
yes,
or
it's
just
wonderful.
as the need?
Yeah, it's wonderful to do on a daily basis, but it's not necessary. You could do it, as you like, or weekly or bi-weekly. The more you do it, you develop a stronger connection, so it's more and more immediate, and then it's easier and easier to just in a moment do any step.
Right.
And so over time, and like I said, you could just really do each of the on-the-spot steps and gain familiarity that way, and that would be a more simple. And then the benefits are numerous. First of all, it opens our heart to our own innate love and compassion, and helps our heart unburden itself and feel free and feel capable and powerful of this transformation, so that we're not overwhelmed and paralyzed by our own suffering or others' suffering or the great suffering of the world, of humanity at large, or not overwhelmed by our difficulties and problems on a personal or global level.
Mm-hmm. Now, so help me understand if there's any like dangers or harm in, you're taking in, something that might be considered, like the negative energy. So help me to understand if there's, if there's any type of, if we should be worried about taking in negative energy, coming from a law of attraction standpoint, coming from different standpoints on the positive and the negative energy. How does this work in that regard? If you find value in this personal growth related material, I strongly recommend that you sign up for your $1 trial to my Personal Growth Club. Just head on over to personalgrowthclub.com and get a whole month of premium Personal Growth Club video training materials, meditations. You also get 6 free hypnosis sessions that are valued at over $174, all for this trial of just $1. Even if you cancel, you can keep the 6 hypnosis sessions. That's my gift to you, and that's how confident I am that you are going to love Personal Growth Club. Go to personalgrowthclub.com and start your $1 1-month trial today.
Well, in a number of different ways that is addressed. So first of all, one of the steps is you call upon an awakened being, and in the Buddhist tradition, you call upon the Bodhisattva of compassion and love, Chenrezig. But you could use somebody else. If you're a Christian, you could use Jesus, for example, or the Great Spirit, or something. So in calling upon an awakened being, and then there's an aspiration prayer for our own innate love and compassion to fully open. And then there's a process where that awakened being dissolves into us and we become inseparable. And that helps us open, which is another benefit to our own innate awakened nature. And actually, the negative and positive are two polarities that don't truly exist. They're how things appear and seem. And so they're transformable. And they're not inherently stuck in what they are. Right. And the awakened nature is completely capable of transforming anything. And so when we get in touch with that, and even if we're just imagining that, there's no possible downside or danger or harm. There's nothing possible. Because out of our intention of transforming suffering into love and joy, that process actually can happen. And as soon as the suffering touches this light, the light which is the embodiment of awakened love and compassion, instantly transforms it. So it's not our small ego self that is doing this. It's actually we're allowing our awakened nature, inseparable with all awakened nature throughout time and space, to do this transformational process. And it's instantaneous, because awakened love automatically transforms everything into love and joy through its presence.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, I get it. I get it now. It was one of those things because, like I had mentioned, I heard about this technique and I started doing this this maybe, not exactly your technique that you teach in your book, but a variation of it that, like you mentioned, is taught out there in the world. And as a 18-year-old learning meditation for the first time, that was a little bit like, ooh, I wonder if I might be getting somebody's negative energy. But now it completely makes sense that really, as you mentioned, there is just energy. It's not a matter, it's not just negative or positive, it's how we perceive it. And once this suffering does touch that light that's within us, it's immediately transformed. So it is a positive thing. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah. And also a lot of people have felt like you felt, or they felt like I'm already overwhelmed by suffering. And that's why, and it feels like a burden to the ego. So that's why this form of it, I think, is really helpful for people, because it isn't the ego that's doing it, and it helps us get in touch with that part of ourself that's ever-present wakefulness that, can do this. So, that's a really powerful part of this particular Tonglen that I think is helpful for people.
Yes, definitely. So you mentioned the first step is resting in open awareness. And then in the second step, seeking refuge in awakened sanctuary. What exactly is the awakened sanctuary?
The awakened sanctuary are metaphorically to say like the arms and love of the Buddhas, of all the awakened beings, the love and sanctuary that awakened or divine beings are always actually offering to us, but we have to open to it.
Okay.
So when beings awaken or achieve great realization, however we want to language that, in a different tradition, then they're ever-present embodiments of wisdom and love. They don't just die and fall off into nowhere. So they're there, and we are, if we open, we can connect with them and feel that love and healing presence. And that is a kind of sanctuary that we can rest and find refuge in, because our true refuge is in our innate true nature and what really is reality. And that reality from a Buddhist point of view is seen as wisdom and love that's ever present everywhere. And that's our actual true refuge. Like unconsciously, we seek refuge in our bank account, our relationships, our job. And that's all good and wonderful, but it ultimately passes away and changes. So it's not an ultimate refuge that's always present.
Mm-hmm.
So the awakened refuge is always present so that we can always open to that and find sanctuary and be refreshed in our hearts and souls.
It's always there for us to connect with.
Right. And so, I explain how you can, the steps to really feel that and embody that and bring that to life.
Ooh,
And this
sounds
kind of
great.
meditation comes to life more and more, as we engage with it.
Yeah, it sounds like it would. It seems like it's a gradual unfolding and connecting and going deeper and deeper into that ability to tap into the, like you mentioned, the awakened sanctuary.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about the cultivated awakened mind step.
So cultivating awakened mind is a translation of a Sanskrit term, the awakened mind, bodhicitta, which really means cultivating altruistic mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it means cultivating love and compassion for ourselves and for all beings. So that's the step of beginning to cultivate and beginning to open into that which is innate in ourselves, this ever-present love and compassion. And we can see it's ever-present in certain examples, like when somebody rushes into a burning building to save someone
Mm-hmm.
with no thought to themselves, just instant. That's because of that innate love and compassion. If that wasn't in us, we wouldn't rush in these circumstances out of the blue without even thinking of it into danger to help somebody.
Yes.
So that's one instance.
So we all have that altruistic nature within us. It's just a matter of being able to connect with the source and experience ourselves in that way when the need arises.
Absolutely, yeah. And to be able to rest in that more and more all the time in our awakened free nature.
Mm-hmm. Now, in the fifth, taking and sending for yourself, and six, taking and sending for others steps, what are meditators taking and sending?
So this is when we're taking in the suffering and it's instantly transformed through this awakened love light in the heart. And then it's transformed into light and into this healing love and awakening energy, and then sent back into the person or people that you're imagining in front of you.
Neat, really neat. It's a beautiful meditation.
Yes, and it's really joyful because as you see, like say you're meditating on one of your friends and you see them being more and more healed and liberated, illuminated with light, awakened, there's a deep sense of joy in that.
Mm-hmm. And what role does self-love play in Love on Every Breath meditation?
Yeah, I was just going to talk about that. It's that it's the same for ourselves. And doing this for ourselves is often the most challenging for people, because cultivating love for ourselves in this culture is it's hard for people a lot of times.
It really is.
Yeah, it really is. So I think, it's wonderful that this ancient meditation really includes a step where you really focus on that. And we suggest sometimes that you even just do that for some months before you move to doing the taking and sending for others, to really cultivate this sense, because oftentimes people have to work through a sense of I'm not worthy of love, or I'm deficient, somehow I'm not good enough to receive love, or something
Exactly.
about themselves. So there's some suggestions for working with that, and basically we have to do some psychological work around that, and then just try to contemplate all our trials, our challenges, everything we've had to face, everything we've had to go through that's tough or that's traumatic, and just really generate this sense of compassion for ourselves and see that we ourselves are no less worthy of receiving love and healing than any other being.
Yeah, I guess that would probably strengthen our ability to send it to others if we
Absolutely. And you really hit on an important point there, I think, that people don't realize sometimes, but I think that's absolutely true. And I think of it as like, if the center of our whole experience is met with love, like we are at the center of our whole experience. And if that's met with love, there's love from the inside out. And, then we're able to rest in that and have much more power to bring that into the world with all of our various activities.
Yeah, so I can definitely see this as even just a way to help somebody love themselves more and improve their connection with their own self, and improve their feelings of self-worth and deserving, and like you said, self-compassion, empathy for yourself. Because if you don't have those things for yourself, it's really, we think that we might feel those ways for other people, but it's hard to love other people purely without really having that pure love for ourselves, I would say.
I think so. Yeah, I think there's a place where we kind of can hit a wall if we haven't developed it for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And also, as we're willing to feel our own pain and have it be transformed, then we have more courage, and we're willing to be with people's pain and have it be transformed.
Yeah, and I think that's why so many people that are in the healing industry, they've been through lots of pain and they've had to heal their own pain, or they've sought out other people to heal them. And so that got them into being in the healing profession themselves, because they can understand it and they can relate to it, and they can it's much easier to have that empathy and that compassion for other people because you've experienced and embraced it within yourself.
Absolutely.
So what is the subtle body, and what does that have to do with meditation? Hello, this is Victoria Gallagher. I hope you're enjoying listening to the Power of Your Mind podcast. As a way of thanking you for listening, I'd like to offer you a one-time discount of 35% off your first order at hiptalk.com. Just go to hiptalk.com and enter the code PODCAST in the discount code area in your cart, and you'll receive 35% off your first order. Thank you so much for listening to the Power of Your Mind podcast.
So I talked about that in the book in chapter 2, because the chakras, this meditation involves the heart chakra.
Okay.
And the chakras are part of the subtle body within a Buddhist yogic point of view. And so the subtle body is like our energy body. Mm-hmm. And from the yogic point of view, both in Hinduism and Buddhism, there's channels that run through the body. And one of my teachers likened these to, of course, you can't see them when you cut into the body or anything, but he likened it to, say there's a tall field of grass. Mm-hmm. You walk through the field on the same path every day for like 2 weeks, there will be a path through that grass.
Yes.
And it's like that. And so working with the chakras and the way the energy moves through the channels is a way of transforming our energy body and coming much closer to our true nature, to our innate awakened nature, our innate goodness, our innate capacity and qualities and power, pure power, and that kind of thing. So I talked about that because it's something that all meditation actually helps our subtle body through the settling of the mind and the settling of the energy. It allows the subtle body to recharge and to receive the life force energy and to be healed, and that actually helps the physical body be healthier. But it also is part of the process of awakening. Awakening is not just a mental process, it's an energetic process as well. So as we move forward on our path towards awakening, then working with the subtle body is a very powerful adjunct as we're transforming the energy patterns.
Interesting. Now, one of the benefits of love on every breath meditation that you share in the book is that it can crack open our hard shell of ego clinging. So what exactly do you mean by that?
Well, we're encapsulated most of the time in our ego consciousness. And in a sense, that's kind of like a prison of our own making. In a sense, of course, we didn't make it on purpose, but it's a limited point of view. And so doing this meditation, engaging in it, helps us to step away from ego consciousness, have compassion and love for our ego self, for our human self, but actually not be completely overtaken by it or identified with it, but actually be able to rest in pure awareness that's ever present all the time, that's unfettered and unbound, and be able to rest in that. And this really increases our wisdom, our discernment, and our capacity to act in the world in a way that works for us and for others, that's successful, and to not be trapped by the patterns of our ego, our reactive patterns.
Yes, definitely. It's so important to learn how to identify those patterns and become aware of them and act in a new way that is deeper and more connected and truer to our real soul.
Exactly, yes.
Ego is not a real soul.
Right. And to be more fulfilled.
Exactly. Well, this has been a very enlightening time that I've spent with you. Thank you so much for joining us on the show and teaching us about love on every breath and Tonglen meditation. Are there any final words that you want to share about that? Any last tips that you want to leave our audience with?
Well, I think, as humanity is facing all the difficulties and challenges we are right now, that this meditation can really help people with that and to free our own minds, our hearts, to fulfill ourselves and then be able to act, like I was mentioning, much more successfully in the world to benefit ourselves and to benefit all of us. And our human race, really, we need to learn to cooperate with each other now so we can have a good outcome for a situation, and so we can move forward to get together in a way that will actually work. So this meditation is offered to everybody in that spirit.
Yes, definitely. And one of the things I hear, I don't know why, but it feels like this meditation has so much of the essence of forgiveness, acceptance, and like almost like a letting go in a way. Does that resonate?
It's true, and it resonates, and it's a process. So I don't think we should jump to forgiveness. I think we have to go through an actual process to get there in a real way.
Yes, definitely. I'm probably jumping.
Otherwise, it's like a mom saying to the kid, just suck it up.
Yes.
So there's a process of that happening where we have to really understand, in a sense, why people act the way they do.
Mm-hmm.
And the causes and conditions that led them to act maybe in a really stupid, destructive way.
Mm-hmm.
And when we understand that, we can, and work through our own feelings about whatever happened, then we can have compassion. So it's important to authentically come to a place of forgiveness through working through the steps. And again, that's why it's really important to be able to generate self-love.
Yes.
That's what helps us work through our own pain and trauma so we can get to an authentic place of forgiveness. If we're not healed, it's going to be very, very hard to actually truly forgive.
That's so true. So it's baby steps, and ultimately it does guide us to those more advanced steps of forgiveness and acceptance and transformation through that process. So to me, it sounds like a wonderful transformational meditation that I would encourage people to learn about and try it on. These are tools and techniques that can help you to empower yourself and feel better about your life, and ultimately have a deeper connection with yourself, which always is going to help you with your mind, your body, your spirit in every way. So thank you once again for enlightening us and being a guest on the Power of Your Mind podcast. You can check out Lama's website again at lamapalden.org. That's LAMAPALDEN.org. Or you can visit her on her Facebook profile, which is facebook.com/Lama Palden Drolma. That's LAMAPALDENDROLMA. And so you can also check out her book on Amazon, Love on Every Breath, Tonglen Meditation for Transforming Pain into Joy. So check it out. And thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you. A pleasure.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with your friends. And once again, be sure to subscribe to the Power of Your Mind podcast if not already. We can be found as Hip Talk on all our social media accounts. So like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, subscribe on YouTube, and sign up for your free self-hypnosis video training course at hiptalk.com. Be sure to subscribe to the Power of Your Mind podcast, and you'll be instantly notified the moment the next podcast becomes available. Also, please be sure to leave a rating and a review to tell us how you're enjoying these episodes, and that way you're making a contribution toward others getting to share in this valuable information. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon. You've been listening to the Power of Your Mind podcast, brought to you by HipTalk.com, Personal Growth Club, and HypnoCloud apps available at iTunes.